All right, up and running. While my packages are in, I told you guys about the open source router on Tuesday, as well as the RAID setup. So they're all in. I just didn't have time to play with it yet. I did write a program to print out questions for a midterm for my other class, the class that's following this one. So this program is kind of neat because what it does is I have 2 or 3 versions per question. Okay, so question 1 has A, B, C, D, question 2 has A, B, C, D, and so on. So the usual way of doing things is I would prearrange things. Okay, do all the manual sorting thing, and then make sure that I pass these tests out in an alternating fashion, so that neighboring students do not get the same questions. And it was kind of tiring to do that. You have to do a lot of shuffling and whatnot. So I wrote a program to do it. So the program will take so every page has a bunch of PDFs according to it. So each page has one set of PDF files. So what I did is the program will basically ask, okay, how many copies do you need? Okay, I need 30 copies. And then it will ask, okay, what are the alternatives of question 1? What are the alternatives of question 2, and so on? And then what it will do is it will just randomly pick the alternatives for each question. So I have no idea what it's going to pick for the next one. So it turned out to be working pretty good. It works a little bit slower because I cannot crank out the same page over and over, and printers do not like it when you have to send a different job in for every page. But I don't have to watch it. I don't have to stand there and do it. When it's all done, I take it out, every 3 page staple, every 3 pages staple, and so on. So that really makes my life a whole lot easier. So in other words, I spent last night learning how to use Python to do it. I have no prior experience with programming in Python. So I learned Python and learned how to do it like this last night. It was interesting. I kind of enjoyed it. And we will get into programming in this class as well. Okay, so that's one thing that you guys can kind of keep an eye open for. If anyone has any specific language that you want to use, with a good reason, we can always switch to, a particular language. I will not do, VB because we do have a VB class here, so there's no need for me to kind of do an introduction of VB. Plus, you also need a lot of, non-open source tools to do it. They are free. You can download for free from Microsoft, but they're not open source. And it does take up quite a bit of resources. If you have an older PC, it may be straining your PC's resources. If you're going to run Visual Studio 2010. So we'll look into maybe Python. Python seems to be a pretty easy one to deal with, or some other programming languages like Scratch is a good one too. Have you guys heard of Scratch? Yeah. Go to scratch.mit.edu. It's not a programming language per se. It is a programming environment. It is Java-based, so it can run on just about any platforms. And the best part is there's no syntax to learn. It is all drag and drop. It's completely pictorial. Okay.
That looks silly.
But it has a lot of multimedia support too. You can actually write simple games using it. You basically program sprites. Okay, they have the concept of a sprite, and a sprite is basically an object that can act on its own. Okay, so each sprite gets its own program, but sprites can detect whether it is colliding or touching another sprite, and you can set the direction. Okay, I want this sprite the heading to be like a particular degree, and I want it to go like 10 steps, and then you can ask a question: did I hit a boundary, or did I hit another object? Okay, so you can actually have all kinds of interactions between the sprites, and depending on the interaction, you can also have your program to change the shape of the sprite, play a media file, and so on and so forth. So you can make some interesting stuff, out of Scratch. It has built-in support for all of this stuff here. Some of you are more artistic than others. You can design your own sprites, like make an animation out of it. Because a sprite has what they call costumes. Okay, they're called costumes. So with a single sprite, you can change the costume, according to your own logic. So that way you can have kind of crude animation out of switching the costumes. And you can also control the timing. You can say, wait 20 milliseconds, change costume. Wait 20 milliseconds, change costume, and so on. So that way, it will give you a kind of a rough idea, a rough presentation of animation. So that's good. I think that's not a bad choice. Yep.
What was the URL? Where can we find that?
The URL.
cisc310.edu.
Yeah. If you just if you go to Google and just look for Scratch, as in cat scratching, it will find it. But this is the direct website.
Don't you have a link on Moodle for us?
No. Well,
Yeah,
maybe.
I downloaded
Okay.
it from...
So you looked at it already?
Yep.
That's funny. I think it is a great introduction to programming. I don't think it is a very practical programming language, because factorial stuff is cool when you don't have any prior exposure. But once you know how to program, this is very cumbersome. I mean, if you just want to write and say, y equals to 2 times x plus k, and then the whole thing squared, it will take you a lot of dragging and dropping just to get it done. On the other hand, if you don't want to learn the syntax of conditional statements, loops, and so on and so forth, this is a great way of doing it. You just say, you just go to the the toolbar, and you say, okay, these are all the control structures. Let me see which one is suitable for what I'm doing. Oh, I need a loop, okay, that will only do something for X many times. So you drag that block, you hook it up to your existing program, and then you drag whatever stuff that needs to go inside that block. And the drag and drop interface has really good support as for as to where you want to insert the additional block. So you can add a block after another block, you can add a block inside of another block, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty cool, and YouTube has countless tutorial on Scratch. So anyone who wants to learn how to use Scratch, there's no need to buy a book, there's no need to read static description, because there's tons of tutorials online already on YouTube. So it's a great little thing if you want to get into programming, or if you have kids, if you know kids who want to get into programming, this is like a super great way of getting into programming. Okay? It does not have some advanced concepts like procedures or subroutines and stuff like that, but as far as the logic of programming is concerned, it has everything that I can cover up to this point in my other programming class, the cisc310 class. It's a great tool. I think it is a good resource. And for this class, we'll continue to talk about your project. Okay, have you guys given it some thoughts already? As to what kind of objective you want to accomplish with your system and stuff like that, because you have to think about that first. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll continue to work on this document and basically add more points and refine existing ones until it is detailed enough that you guys can go from it to your actual project. Okay. So when you specify the PC, this is the order that I would use, when I build a new system. Now, of course, before you get to build a system or specify components of the system, you first have to answer the questions in the previous section. Okay, what am I going to use the PC for? Okay. Now, general purpose is not a bad term, but it is also kind of vague. It doesn't tell you exactly what you're going to use the system for. So if you guys are thinking about, I just want to build a general purpose, GP type of computer, you might want to list the applications that you think you'll be running. Okay, at least mention, okay, I think I will be running Microsoft Office or Open Office, pick one, doesn't have to be one or the other. You might want to say, I might want to do some photo editing. So in that case, you can either select the CS4, CS5, or you can select the GIMP, open source software that does not need a lot of resources. You can choose and say, sometimes I might want to edit some video clips. Okay, nothing major, just minor video clip editing. Now Windows does come with some tools to do that now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What is it called?
Movie Maker.
Movie Maker. So you can list Movie Maker as one of the programs that you might want to use, And you can also even mention, how many of these programs, are you going to run at the same time? Okay, I think most people will run a browser for sure, okay, all the time. And then on top of that, maybe a word processor. If you're writing an English paper and you have to research something, look up something on the internet, then you have the word processor open on one side, and then you have the a browser open on the other side, so that you can do some research, do some typing, do some more research. So you kind of have to kind of plan ahead of time of what you'll be using and how you'll be using those application programs. Now the next question is, okay, I think I remember from last time, how do you know how much RAM you need? That was basically the topic that we were, we kind of stopped at that topic last time. So one thing you can do is to go to a manufacturer's website, or in this case, a publisher's website. Let's say we go to Adobe's website, okay? We go to Adobe's website and we try to look up, okay, how much RAM do I need to run, say, Photoshop? That's a cool picture. So what we want to do is to go to products and look up a specific product, whatever you plan, that you want to use. And I'm kind of convinced that it is my flash card that is being slow. And having the recording at the same time does not help, because the recording soaks up probably about 3 megabytes per second. So I only have maybe 2 or 3 megabytes per second left to do all the extra stuff. No thanks. Okay, so we have the CS5 production master. Okay, we'll just go for the design premium product. And this is also a great way to review the stuff that we have talked about, when we talked about application programs, because there are certain things you have to know about application programs before you install or plan to use it. So we want to look up the specifications. Come on, move. If it takes this much time to load the page, I would say it is not a very friendly page. Come on. I don't need the flash animation. Come on. I just need to know the specifications.
Probably go to Amazon and get that information too.
Oh, like a summary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or just type it into Google and it'll probably pop up a couple summaries.
Okay, Adobe CS5 Photoshop requirements. System requirements. There we go. And this is also an Adobe website, but since it is focusing on just the specification, it loads so much faster because there's no multimedia stuff, no flash animation, just the facts. Yep, just the facts, ma'am. All right, so right here you can see right away what are the bare minimums of running CS5. And was it specific to Photoshop? Yeah, it is Photoshop specific. So you need a Pentium 4 or AMD Athlon 64 processor, which by today's standard are fairly old already. I mean, the Pentium 4 processor is about 2.5 generations ago, or maybe 3 generations ago. So that's not a whole lot. Microsoft Windows XP with SP3, Surface Pack 3, Vista, or Windows 7. Okay, 1 gig of RAM. Now that is very misleading. If you have 1 gig of RAM